Hello, and welcome to the DM's Travel Book Club, a guide to Faerun, where we take a whistle-stop tour around the Forgotten Realms, see the sights, meet the people, and discover hidden treasures. the handshake. Ooh,
Meet the
hello,
people.
hello. Meet the people.
Oh, yeah, so I think of like, what? See the sights,
See the
meet
sights.
the people.
Yes, meet the people, find treasure. Yeah, unfortunately for our audio listeners, you have no idea what we're doing, but Hamilton is doing a great pantomiming of all the different actions in the scene. I just support
You can go to the
people.
YouTube and watch the video to see them this time. Yeah,
Absolutely. As a sort of side note, I recently discovered the game Happy Salmon. I don't know if you've ever played that game, Hamilton.
Yeah, so you have to make that. You chuck the cards on the floor, and you've got the different like actions you've got to do to it. Is that
Yeah,
the one?
exactly.
Yes.
So there's like the fish bump is like a fist bump,
Yeah.
high five, spin it that you spin around the table. But then there's Happy Salmon where you have to hit the other person's arm like sort of like this motion, and it's weird to do it by yourself when you're explaining to people how to play it. Everyone looks at you really weird, like.
It's a weird thing to do, but yeah.
But then if you're doing it to other people, it's also kind of weird. So but like you tell you what,
which is the Happy Salmon, I assume.
It is the happy, that is the Happy Salmon move. So let me tell you, improv teams have bonded and broken over Happy Salmon. So there you go. But there you go. But enough about physicality for an audience that can't hear us or see us, or they can see us. Never mind.
What are we talking? Hopefully they can hear us.
They can hear us. Well, I don't know. We've been all the way around Faerun at this point. We've gone from place to place, and now we're here on. Oh, look at all these islands, Hamilton.
I know. We're out in the wash, in the wake, in the water. We've gone from extreme frozen cold to the heat desert.
And
we thought we wanted just to be out on the open waves, a bit of fresh air in our lungs, a bit of nature, a bit of greenery, a bit of classic fantasy fae adventure.
Fae islands, maybe a bit of sailing, perhaps. Pirates.
Lycanthropy. Rust monsters.
I guess.
Dark dragons.
Oh no! What? Where are we going, Hamilton? Where are we today?
Well, instead of going off to the Caribbean or anything like that, we've ended up in the Moonshae Isles, a realm of ancient magic, fierce storms, bold heroes where the druids safeguard moon wells of the Earth Mother.
Oh, there you go. Yes, the Moonshae Isles, certainly for this chapter from the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, covers 7 of the major islands, and there's over 100 smaller ones and a variety of cultures that call these isles home. I do like how it's like, there's 100 smaller isles, but then there's no details on them.
And they keep moving and disappearing and coming back again, which is perfectly normal.
Perfectly normal. I mean, but what I would have loved, similar to how we talked about it, maybe with our Spelljammer one ages and ages ago, if there was some like rolling random tables to get these, what are these 100 small islands like? Give them a name, get them. Why are them in the last scene? What is the major thing that's on the island that people would go and look at? But
is it like Fae realm? Is it Fae ruled? Is it druid focused? Is it another monster island? Is it a deserted island hidden with treasure? Like it could have some sort of vibes. You could have like a little dungeon generator thing, but like island generator.
Island generator, absolutely. But we've got the 7 major isles to look at, and as you said, this sort of story of the Moonshae Isles, I actually think the story behind it is really interesting. This idea of like people coming together to protect their homes, this idea of tragedy and being united against a common foe, but however this foe, it's a different kind of foe that's now happening to this island. I think just in general, like when we talked about like the Dale Lands way back when, this idea of like, I guess it's traditional that everything's on the forest, everything's on land. Very rarely I have found my games have taken to the sea, and it's usually, if it's the sea, it's going from one place to another, right? We're not spending a lot of time on the ocean unless it's like random encounters, right? And here we've got these islands where they have to be self-sufficient. There's always going to be different cultures that maybe come into clash and conflict, and I just thought this is a really, you said it's like a refreshing. I can always have the sea breeze in my face as we're sailing, and I just think it's really interesting. And I haven't really considered having like a longer campaign based on islands or like an I can't even say the word
archipelago.
See, you even knew what I was going to say. That's how in sync we are. But I do, because I'm sure there's loads of like, I think salt marsh is the one I always think of because of the water stuff there. But like sailing and like exploring an island, usually I feel like the last couple of adventures, or any adventures I've seen, it's usually like a one-shot or a two-parter. But here, I'm like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to have a long-running campaign on exploring these islands that suddenly appear or disappear, finding stuff and going underwater and seeing more of that. So I am intrigued by Moonshae Isles for sure.
It is interesting, and it's a good, interesting way to create distance from, like, create smaller cultures and communities to create. So that can be much more separate in a more smaller zone, I feel, because if they were like 3 towns very close to each other with not water between them, the sense that they would all have a completely different culture is less likely to be believed by people than if you're like, each of these islands has grown independently of one another with their own culture because of factors that are different between each of them. Particularly in a fantasy realm where you can basically make up that like Fae come out of one and all the monsters are another. So I feel like it's a really nice way of being like, oh, there's distance and separation without it being too far, and creating lots of little, like a little melting pot of different things in a very small area. What, instead of like creating a world where you need like a whole country with 40 different like cities before you get to the next country with a whole different culture. And hence why I did that in Wraithborn and made it about 5 islands, because it's exactly that same thinking, because it's that idea that you could just be very close but also very far away at the same time.
100%. And it's interesting that you point out, like at the beginning, obviously we went to Icewind Dale, then we went to Calimshan, so 2 extremes of like very cold and very, very hot. Here, there's not really much about like, obviously, it talks about like your travel a little bit, but in the sense of like, oh, that will be something you have to do, and here's some boats that you can take and all that sort of thing. I kind of wish there was more encounters or more sort of stuff under the water, or just stuff like that, because I felt like that's, for me, it's the interesting part. It's like, what if you need to go diving to get treasure? What if there's an adventure that's about a sunken ship at the end of the chapter, and about finding something on that ship? And I just was like, I feel that's kind of interesting, is going to the underwater stuff. And similarly, maybe if there was another place we could go to, like something in the air, so we're having all these different elements. And like, what idea? Just that's what I thought, because there wasn't really much on that necessarily, but maybe that's not the focus of these stories. Like, we had the Feywild focus, we had this idea of a political war that happened, and then this tragedy that happened that united these different people together, and now they're kind of in the middle of like rebuilding and having to fight against or trying to coexist with all these different cultures, but also trying to fight against this rusting, this corruption, which, gosh, I think one of the themes it comes up, and they mentioned it a couple of times, is this eco sort of like fantasy is like, hey, climate change, remember that climate change? That's happening here. Climate change is happening here, and what can we do about it? And I think I like it as a here's a theme to think about, but I also kind of, it makes me laugh a little bit. There's no solutions really, like, and maybe that's the thing, right? Maybe that's, to be realistic, like even in our world right now with climate change, there's only so much we can do before we have to do more proactive efforts to push it back, and even then it might be too late. So I did think that was an interesting theme to bring up, this idea of this corruption from polluting the waters, and our people becoming more rusted, like this visual representation of people being like hardened or crumbly, and just like you're erasing your own existence from this place.
I mean, there is like, you can, because the basis of the rusting being like a vampire's dying curse, you could always which is really cool, but you could always, like, as a GM, very much factor a solution to that with like, you must head into the Shadow Realm and find the corpse, or the still rotting corpse of this vampire where they've been transferred or something like that, and you must defeat them. Like, you could always do something along those lines. But you're right, it's an interesting, it's a really interesting thing, and like, I think it's very cool.
I think that because it is hidden. I will say the solution the book does provide for the rusting is this idea of the Archfey High Lady Orfdath, Gandalf, I think is her name. She has this like premonition that she will eventually die in order to will sacrifice herself to do this, and it's right at the end. I think it said like if she sacrifices to stop this great evil, then it will all go away. But because of the way this chapter is written, I feel like that's a kind of like, this is something you could try. Oh, it's something that could happen in the background. You players aren't necessarily engaged with it, which I thought was a bit of a shame. But it's, it's quite a big thing to be like, it's been foreseen or prophesied that this individual from the Feywild is coming and sacrificing. Like, does that mean all magic of the Moonshae Isles dies? Perhaps, like all the stuff like Gwyneth, this place that she's founded, like, will that disappear? Like, because it's like the end of an era, sort of thing. Again, another tragedy that's on its way. But I wasn't entirely sure because it felt so sort of nebulous. Of like, well, if you want to stop the rusting, here's one way of doing it. But maybe there's other events. Maybe again, I always have to put this disclaimer of like, maybe in previous campaign settings for the Forgotten Realms, it talks more about it. But I thought it was interesting because it has this tension between the let me get their names right because I don't want to get it wrong, but the Kendrick family versus the Ordaith like son family, and then somebody dies. Dereth's son, I want to say Oren, dies because of this invasion by Am. This, and then because of this grief, I'm imagining the loss of her own son, Lady Ordath, they and Anna ally together, and then they have the prince and princess then marry, and then we have Caitlin Kendrick, whose eyes were seeing this island through. So we have a just sort of generational thing as well, which I think is very interesting. We haven't had that with the other places. So.
Yeah, and it mentions that, like, the loss of her uncle at one point as well later on in the book, when she's like, "Oh, they died. I'm older than they were when they passed, and I'm living for both of us." As a sentence she says later on, and like, and it is interesting seeing it through. It's very much like, well, very much. It's borderline Gen Z eyes in some respects at times. Like, there's a kind of like, like I don't know, it's a little bit like Disney-fied Gen Z, like I'm gonna go hang out. That's why I hang out in the Feywild, having fun, and it's like,
see you later, Dad. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's very much like that. It is good having that sort of. We've said this many times, we like when there's a personal touch to the story added in, and a sort of an outside voice that's being editor in some ways, or giving some sort of like context to things, which is really cool. I think there's clearly like an interesting power balance generally going on. I think like on top of all of the, it does mention like there's the fairy tales because you've got the Fae, you've also got these sort of like monstrous islands of Moray. You've got, you said like adventures at sea, of which it does give you said a couple of encounters, but it doesn't explore undersea, which I think is a really interesting point. Totally agree with that. And the eco fantasy, but you've also got a lot of political intrigue, but not in the same way that we found in other places. Yeah, where it may be like in the Dale Lands, where you've got the conglomeration of multiple towns having to and Icewind Dale together having to decide together to come to agreements, or like in Icewind Dale where like every single city is dealing with some sort of alien or otherworldly nature, and that maybe has some political intrigue in it. And Calimshan, which has politics in a sort of like slightly different way, I guess. It's not as, I guess it is as critical, but I think what I'm saying here is that the political intrigue is really how do the people at the top deal with like a wasting land? How do they come together to like inspire the people? There's one of the islands where it says that like they're fighting, and I forget which one it is off my head. I think it's just need to remind myself of the names of all of them because is
it Snowdown?
Snowdon.
Snowdown. Yeah, no, I also put in my head Snowdon.
Snowdown, where they're like, it says that like they haven't got the resources. They've been put in charge because they're like, Snowdown's history is rife with sorrow and devastation, and because it's just come out of this Am invasion, and so like. And it's got the rusted as first manifest there. So like they are fighting an endless battle against this rusting, and without any successful help from the main High King and family, because there's just not enough going on. So it's like, how do you deal with that? Is there something that you could play which investigates like, okay, we're going to help you gain political power. We're going to help you get the resources you need. Can we find a way to do this as adventurers? It's a different story, but it is something that I think hasn't been explored. Whilst in like Icewind Dale, it's more like, oh, we're struggling with an alien threat or like a terrifying threat. This is more like a slow, protracted war of attrition.
Slowly but surely.
against an infection, really, which is kind of quite
well,
different.
it feels very real, right? Because that's the whole thing about climate change is like, well, we want to make sure that this place is ready for future generations. That some people are like, well, I'm not going to be here, so what's the point? I kind of liked how it talks about, like, because again, it goes back to this Moonwell's theme throughout. Like, there's the only Moonwell on Snowdown which was corrupted. The Moonshaes chased off the druid and all that sort of thing, and then without its protectors, the water of this Moonwell turned to a slick, glistening oil. Its surrounding stones withered to rust, and the trees of its grove whitened and died. So it makes me think of the classic animated film Fern Gully, if you ever watched that as a kid, where it's like this horrific like logging company comes and everything it spews out, this machine is just black ichor and everything's dying around it, and everyone's like, why is this happening to us? So I can absolutely see this, and I like the idea of being able to describe it in some way. But it talks about this idea, like this place, Snowdown, was temperate and fertile and a beautiful place. And then I can imagine, you know how sometimes you see before and after pictures of like places, and usually they do it because it's like, oh, well, they put a not a fan, what's it called, like an electronic windmill, turbine. There you go. I was like, the one in the middle is what I was trying to think. The turbines or the quarries of, so you've got the mining happening, and you have like a before and after picture of how it's like propaganda of like, certainly for the turbines, it's like, oh, it was so much beautiful before then. And I just imagine over 100 years that this rusting is slowly starting to creep in, and you see it everywhere. It's really, I just think it could be really interesting. And like you said, like people, the other Moonshae Isles aren't sure how to deal with it, so they've kind of been left to their own devices. And I think this it has a little bit of descriptions of like there's only one small forest that remains, and it's full of stunted and discolored trees, whatever that means. I just thought that was really, that sparse. Maybe it's always winter here, like it's cold, everything's dead, and that rusting, everything's got this layer to it, so it's very tactile,
100%. No, it's it's a really cool idea. I feel weird because I also had like a similar thing in my game, so I'm I don't know, it's one of those things where I'm like, it was a cool idea because I also had a similar thing, but it's also like I think it's I think playing on the themes of environmental catastrophe is something that we can, like, people might want to explore. I think it's a really good way of doing that, and doing it in like in a fantasy way. And I think not giving you an exact way to undo it, apart from like restoring the environment, stopping people from being a bit Captain Planet about it, which is kind of fun. And I think it gives a sort of, I don't know, trying to think of a good if there's a teacher, I guess like maybe like Blades in the Dark, where you have like ownership of territory. You could have like a similar sort of like, how much are we succeeding, and is there a way that, like, if we actually undo all the environmental destruction, does it undo the curse? Is that a way of doing it beyond like having to go find the vampire and like undo the curse that way? Is there a deal that could be made with the Fae? Because like the Fae, or with them, or can we do something for with the Earth Mother? Is there a way like that we can harness her power, or by doing quests with the Earth Mother to as well? Like, because there might be some. So I think it opens it up to a few, like for GMs to come up with a few different interpretations of how that does. As much as I don't really want to get rid of Rusted Pirates, because I think they have the coolest damn shit.
Let me tell you, my big note here, right, is Queen for Fallen, and I just wrote more of her, please.
Yes, whole thing about that.
Cool. Badass. Like the picture of her is badass. This idea again comes into a little bit later with one of the adventures in a little bit more detail, that her brother, Jarl of Sven, he asked for kind of help with this idea of like, he doesn't really want to tell people that his sister is a rusty, and this, I can just see this like story playing out, how he's in, he is a leader in this place, on this isle, but it's trying to help her, but she's that she has her senses still, but she's now a pirate on this cool ass ship, a rusting ship. So badass. I was like, I wanted so much more of her. But she's 100%. She might be elsewhere. I appreciate that, but I'm just like going like, that's the cool thing here. I wish there was more stuff that spoke to us. Like I was like, hey, I wish there was a better storyline with her in it, because I don't think that the adventure that talked about it was fine. It was about that's why I'm going to find it again. Was that the treaty one? Maybe, or was it Wreck of the Silver Hand? I think it was the Wreck of the Silver Hand. Yes, where he's learned from his sister that there's a safe that contains this lost artifact, which is from the original person who was the leadership over the Isles. Go get the ring and give it to High King Kendrick. And like, cool.
Yes.
But what if the Queen was like, I'm going to take it for myself, and you have to bargain with her, or she captures you, and then you're like, it's such a shame that she wasn't like a more active part in it, whereas I think she has so many cool things. And like, does she want to be changed back? Can she be changed back? Maybe, all those cool things. I just, you know what it is, Alton? You know what it is? I want there to be a pirate on pirate combat where your ship and her ship are fighting, and then and then there's
boarding actions, and then you want the whole shebang. 100%. No, I agree. I think it's it's like sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I recommend Pyroborg.
Oh, you recommend? Yes, absolutely. So the other thing, the big thing about this is with the cultures. So here is the first time I feel like it's tried to make a difference of like, here are two native cultures that have settled here. So we have the folk, with two Fs, and you have the Norlanders, and how they are very different, perhaps. They coexist peacefully now across the Moonshae Isles. But the folks are they're peaceful but proud, they're industrious and curious, and they value laws, hard work, and education. And that's where the Kendrick family, who are in charge just now, they rule, and they are originally folk. And then on the other side, we have the Norlanders, who are more adventurous, I would say. They're sort of like, they have a sort of culture around hero gods and like
very
brave,
coded,
very much so. Like they believe the world is tragic and all good things are temporary.
Exactly. It's really
so
cool.
I guess my thing for this is that I like the idea of having two opposing cultures that are now working together and often are peacefully coexisting. I'd like to have a bit more about like what the differences are. So like in terms of dress, do they have different festival days, cuisine? I know it seems so picky, but like if they're coexisting peacefully, maybe if we're going into a marketplace, the folk stand is showing amazing jewelry as very beautiful, whereas the Norlanders, I don't know, they're talking about recruiting for the high seas. Like I'm just thinking of like, how can you make it really obvious that there are different cultures here, and have these different values come to the forefront? Because I didn't really get that. Like I feel like what could happen is that you could just mix them all into one. So, there are Norlanders, they come from this place, and then you don't give them that flavor to add, give them something more. Because I just think that it's very interesting how these two folks saw each other as like, they're lazy, or they're focusing on the past too much, and then they're like, well, this war has brought us together, and seeing the benefits and what they do to unite. I just thought it was a much more interesting thing, and I'd like to be able to show that as they're being united under this dynasty. You know what I mean?
No, that's really interesting. I think I feel like this has been a general problem the whole way through the book, in the sense of like a lack of depth to a certain things that you think like it would be nice to do, because you feel like you're right. You could, when we looked at that A book, there was so much more of that sort of information, where you had like much more about culture in the sense of like dress, foods,
festival days
and hobbies. Festival days.
Yeah, well, I mean, the hobbies are obviously so big for Fae folk, right? Because it's like you must, you can't just focus on magic this whole time. You also need to have like a collecting real estate as a hobby, that sort of thing. So it would be nice just to have a bit more about it. So it says here, like the only thing it says is this little paragraph, which is like, whilst the folk and Norlanders retain their own cultural identities, including manners of dress, cuisine, and musical tastes, they often view themselves as singular people, particularly in places where two cultures intermingle most, such as on Alaron. And I was like, but musical taste indicates to me like, they've got different like folklore instruments.
Yeah.
And that's always really, I always think that's really cool. Like, I want to be able to describe, like, oh, they have a certain kind of quartet. Like, again, just speaking about my experience recently, I was down in the quote unquote Irish pub down the road, so it's but people came and there was a whole, like, not band practice, but loads of people there with like Irish fiddles and like and they all were, people who had come originally or had families originally from Ireland, and they were just playing music together. And I was like, damn, that's really cool that they could come to this space and do it. And that's the thing. I was like, that's a moment that really sticks to me. And I'm like, cool, I want to be able to showcase that. But like, hey, this place is living whilst you guys are, wandering through the tavern or something. There's this group of people who are playing together and laughing, and they're playing games and they're calling out on each other, but it's all friendly, and it's some sort of folk card game that has impossible rules to understand, but like once you get in it, you might gain lots of money, or so, like, I just feel like just something a little bit extra to get that flavor is what I was missing from like the two folks, the two different lineages coming down from here, or cultures.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think. Yeah, okay. I think what would be. Yeah, I think what would be good for a lot of this book is to expand a bit more, and I think we could. Maybe it's just something that we're meant to do. I always find that as well. Like, that's it. No,
don't say that. Yes, no, I know. Again, it's just, I guess it's that sort of thing where they don't have time to do it. They don't have the word count. I understand it, but I think it's a shame because I'm instantly like, it's good to know that there was these two different cultures united against the war against Am. Is there now like people? Again, maybe this is too real, perhaps. Or is there people like going, well, the Norlanders want independence. They want their own place. There's been more clashes between folks because those things do happen. And whilst it's like, yes, right now it's unified and stuff, but like, there's like a whole thread or a story about like King Kendrick still struggling to unite the Isles. And so I'm like, what else could that be? What else? The peace, right? It says here, like, High King Kendrick wants to unite the Moonshae Isles into a single peaceful land, but he can't do that alone. He expects his realm and that of High Lady Ordalf to be united only after Prince Caitlin inherits the throne. But then Prince Caitlin, is folk, right? So it's like, why would the Norlanders? They helped with the fight,
she's from both sides in some respects, though, isn't she? Because they're both.
I think. Well, because is she not? Because I think is it the Feywild? I don't know if it's like the Feywild folk and Norlanders. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, but her. Wait, if I missed, because isn't.
No. This is where we need to discuss because I don't remember. That's why. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is.
You're right. Because yes, you're right. Because there's no. Yeah, because she's not. You're right. Yes, I have now got this. There's
no. Norlander family. There's a couple of rulers, but it's more in my head like baronies or clans that are all self-ruling or sufficient. That's what I see it as. I don't know if that is 100% true.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Does it actually say why they united under Kendrick dynasty? Did it say why? Like,
I think just because they didn't want Am to take over.
Yes,
I think
that was why.
I feel that's what it is. Yeah.
Yes, of course, right. And also because I guess, in a sense, since like you have the Fae and the folk united, it's kind of like, well, let's all band together. And it was all, as you said, there was a common enemy with Am as well, because yes, that's still like another thing that reminds me a little bit of the Dale Lands, where there was I forget now the country that was invading all the time, Cameron, wasn't it? And there was another one
Cormoran,
as well. Cormoran, and the one to the south as well. Sembia, that was
That's wild. Yes. I pulled those out of my head.
Yeah,
out of my
it was
ass.
amazing.
I was like,
and they both were like taking and retaking and giving back Dales, and so there's a thing happening here, and I think that's it's something that you could also play on. I think that's maybe a good point, and maybe that's a little political and you do. Maybe there's a bit of a false flag operation where it's like they pretend that Am is invading to try and unite everyone together, sort of thing, when it's not actually the case, or something like that. So
And yeah, like as you mentioned, we've got the Fae as well, and they've got Eladrin here. They had again another pulling through some sort of city with the power of a Mythal again, but then that also went underwater, which is always always quite interesting. I thought sank Carador beneath the Great Lake called Murloc.
Yes.
So that's interesting. And then you have a little bit about giants as well, like giants constructed homes in these picturesque locations throughout the Isles and top the tallest peaks with fantastic castles. But their influence gradually faded, and one by one they abandoned their homes and castles. And then all the other folks that are around here, they will repurpose these towering blocks to use in abandoned structures for walls and doors, in everything from throne rooms to ritual sites. And I like the idea that because giants, I think giants are really scary, but like they are still a part of this culture in some way, and one of the adventures later on is talking about a giant of some sort as well. So I'm like, I'd like to see more of that, but I think ultimately the thing that stands out to me about Moonshae is this nature stuff, the islands, and the political intrigue, and having to deal with all those things. And so the giants, I can understand not taking as bigger step forward, and the Feywild as well. So I think it's an interesting like mix of elements. Like, feels like I said to you at the beginning, like I feel like it's really refreshing and interesting. Like I won't be not disappointed, but like every session I'm not entirely sure what to expect when we get to a new island, and that's exciting. I find that really intriguing.
No, that's true. No, that's I think that's exactly the point, and that's what I think has been the most interesting thing about this one, is that every single island has been a new story to tell with a completely different culture. I think and I think there's also, like, we haven't even talked about the Cult of the Beast, the Cult of Dragon as well being involved here. All the things about the relationship between the fire giants who've made a pact, and that with, I've forgotten now who they've made a pact with, but they've made a pact that is then which has then been like made root throughout all the giants, and then the Fomorians are rising up from
Fomorians
the earth.
Are so scary. That pit, I don't know if you've seen a recent picture of them in the new
do they look cool? I have to look at this.
I mean, I'd look at it, I'd definitely check it out, because they're much bigger than I remember. The Fomorians I always remember because they have a really horrible eye. I used to think they were really small, and actually they look really big. So they are terrifying. And again, understanding that corruption, and if you have rust on them as well, they're connected to rust in some way. Pretty terrifying.
That's cool.
Yeah, very scary. Again, going back to the idea of more stuff about. Again, I think for this, I really wish there was more flavor to stuff. So this idea of fairy trods.
Yeah,
cool.
I
love this idea. Again, big thing in folklore and fairy tales. This idea of like staying on the path or not going into mushrooms and all, the mushroom circle and breaking stuff. And there's a guardian on these paths, and you'll use them to get to places or hollow hills, all that sort of thing. Man, again, I wish there was like a random table or like suggestions of what kind of fairy trods there were, or if there's any established ones that go from like island to island, perhaps.
Yeah, because it's very much like finding one. Fairy trod guardians, they could be one of these things, no like list, and then traveling them. It probably is impossible to drain. Takes about an hour otherwise, and then you're like, it's not. If that was a series of tables of the finding a fairy trod, here's 10 different ways you might find them. Right. Like you come across weird shaped footprints that you notice in the muddy floor, but they twinkle with a magical fire. The other one is like, you see a tree sort of bend and like replace itself as a figure moves between two trees, and then it disappears. Cool. Like sort of those kind of things. And like, you could play a few of those different roles, and so you go and investigate, and you must make for each of them. It's like, for the path one, you have to do a perception check or a tracking check, and the other one is like, you have to do a wisdom check to see that you notice that there's like a pattern in the tree, that if you like write on it or something like that. And there's an intelligence check one for something like that.
Well, very, very much like those portal gates we saw in the inner and outer planes, where it'd be always like, oh, we can open this gate if you are of human descent that also has a unique bone. You know, again,
I was just thinking a bone. Exactly. It's always like a bone.
It's always a
of some
bone.
animal. Of,
But something similar here. Like you whisper a secret that no one else knows, and that's how you get on the path.
You say "friend" in Elvish.
Oh, don't you hilarious. Be quiet. Yes, exactly. It's like that. It's like saying the password, or like finding answering a riddle, or saying, like, you know, the version of the eagle has landed, but I don't know, the Formir, the hill giant demands his dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I think all going round going clockwise around widow shins, you know, anything like that. I would love to have that, because then you have
to get a buttercup and rub it on your chin, and if it goes yellow, you're allowed through.
You're allowed through, and if it doesn't, you go, oh, well, you don't like butter, and you're also not allowed on this. Yes, exactly.
That may be a very British reference, but I don't know if that's the thing they do elsewhere.
But that's the thing. I like because that makes me excited, because it's not like a riddle, or it's a puzzle, but it's also one where you can work out, and it's a little bit fun and a little bit whimsical. That's what it is. I want more of these things to be a little bit whimsical. Well, that's what it feels what it is. You know?
That's what we liked about Beyond the Witchlight, is it really captured that whimsy, and so. Yeah, I mean, I must admit, the whole thing generally feels very lightweight, like, as an overall. Yeah. Because, like, even the rusting, even though we think that the art is really cool,
so cool,
and some of the beasts are kind of cool, it's the images go much harder than the text. Do you know what I mean?
Hard, it's
really exactly. Like, the imagery is like, fuck yeah, rock and roll, and then you're like, it's like, and then you've just got like, oh, everyone's getting rusty. You know, it's kind of like, do you know what I mean? And it's like the Moonwell goes a bit oily. You're like, you know, come on, like let's freaking go. You know, not to like promote myself again, but go read Wraithborn and read my Ironclad stuff all about Finn, where it's got like rusting corruption. You know, like it's all about like wires spurting from the ground, and like wire krakens and beasts like growing like alternate limbs and stuff. Like really like push the narrative a bit is kind of what I'm expecting.
Like I'm just looking at like Queen Forfalten's like stat block just now. Right, along each one, she has for a bonus action, she has something called Rust's Grip, which is a Constitution saving throw, DC 16. The target is disadvantaged on the save if it's already poisoned condition. First failure, it has the restrained condition and repeats the save at the end of its next turn if it's still restrained. And then the effect on itself, second failure, it becomes petrified instead of restrained, and becomes a statue of rusted iron. You become petrified.
Cool.
Brilliant.
Freaking cool.
So
like
scary.
Bloody choke grip, like Darth Vader stuff, but in the hand, clamping down, and then it's just like slowly your body is like rusting as you're like, do you know what I mean? Your friends are trying to hack at the arm, like cut the arm off, and it's just like this ching ching ching, AC too high, it's not happening. No. And then they're just petrified. You know, like, I mean, it's pretty cool. But that's a pretty epic intro for your baddie. Like, just grab, like, don't take a DNPC or an NPC and just do that.
Freeze
and be like,
them. Yeah, absolutely.
I did the Macaulay Culkin.
The Macaulay Culkin or the Scream move, whatever you call it. Yeah,
exactly.
I think, I wish, because they talked about the rusting, about like what it means, right? And it's this, you know, again, it's this magical contagion. We've had a few of them earlier as well, with like the sicking, vomiting one and the stuff like that. And it has all the negative stuff, right? So like, you know, plated joints you reduce by 5 foot, you get, you know, exhausted, you don't die, you turn into the thing, yada yada yada, all that stuff. I kind of wish you got a benefit from it, because there's a little talk about it, about how people seek out this curse because they consider it a path to strength, power, and extended life. But I'd be like, what if you got like some benefit, like your weapons give poison damage, or you know, or something, like you like you might be like, I don't mind being a little rusty for now because it will help me through this bit. I don't know, like I feel I just like that element of like, because if people are seeking out this idea of corruption, I like the idea as soon as you're corrupted, you start, again, agency and all that sort of thing, but like you start thinking to yourself like, oh, that's just a benefit. You know, it makes me think of the cursed axe that Grog had in Critical Role, where it's like this axe was like doing lots of cool things, and the player's like, oh, this is a bad thing, but also I get all these benefits.
Well, that's because what, like, in my version of this thing is that I have these manifestations that are like, they're manifestation and revelations, which are like physical corruption effects and mental corruption effects that it both has on you, and you have to roll on. If you fail either Borg, but like a mental stat, or so in this case it could be wisdom or
You're right.
or intelligence, and the other one, and then a strength or toughness, maybe constitution in this. So a constitution or wisdom save is what it would translate as. And then what it was is that like the revelations would make you start believing this is good, so you become one of those people, I guess what they're calling them in this is like rusted, where you're like pro rust. Do you know what I mean? Like you're being affected by like I had this thing where it also whispers to you. There's a mist that goes with it, so it kind of whispers to you these thoughts because it's like from a different world. But like, and I think you could maybe have that, like maybe the vampire whispers in your ear, like, "This is good. You must spread the rust. You must destroy nature. Burn the oil." But
destroy nature.
Yeah, exactly. But like when you make these failures, it'd be nice to have like a table like of this is like, okay, you +1 to armor, right? You've got +1 to armor, but you're like brittle. So if you take a damage, you take +1 damage, any damage. So like AC goes up by 1, but maybe your damage take is like if they hit that AC, you're more likely to like break or gain injuries or something like that. Might be interesting, or just like just gaining AC could be really cool, but you're slowly becoming rusted. Or you could have additional limbs that grow off you, or more like wires spurt out of you that you could grab onto people with.
Proper
I had one where
scrapyard,
it's like your legs fuse into like big, huge snake-like wires, so you kind of slither around. So you're like really fast and easy, like gain an agility skill or something like that. And maybe take away movement because like you're becoming rusted. So like your movement decreases by 5 foot each point of rust you take. Have weapon, like I had a whole with a rusted thing as well, which is like if you're hit by a rusted creature, a bit similar in this, your weapon must make if your weapon takes a damage threshold, right? Over like if you try and like maybe even if you make a save, like you block a thing, you gain 1 point of rust on your weapon. If your weapon takes 3 points, and that means it loses -1. So it becomes if it's a +1 weapon, it becomes a 0 weapon, and then it becomes a -1 weapon. And when it hits -3, it's damaged.
It's gone. It breaks. It's completely useless. Oh, fun.
So and you could do the same with your armor. If you're wearing armor, you take hits. Whenever you take a hit, no matter if you save from the hit and don't take damage, again, -1 to your armor until it hits -3. And then your armor's broken, you no longer have the benefit of the armor. And I think
100%.
those are things you're like, come on, this is seriously easy stuff, guys. Like,
guys, I've given this to you, guys.
I've already done this, guys. Do it, guys. Like,
That's so funny.
So I do agree. I think there's a lot more that could be done for rusting.
It does feel like one of those, like, it's a story that you tell it's a story you tell children to like, don't get off the beaten path because there could be rusted there, and like they're like, and it's like, oh, we've not seen rusted for 20 years. It feels more like bogeyman style, but actually like the idea that it is a serious threat, and like, some of the children went missing, we don't know where they are, and then again, plot reasons they're fine, but it's that something like, oh no, a horde of rusted or or like lycanthropes that have come, and they're gonna like use they're gonna appease whatever rusting or the cult of the beast. And
you could you could do things as well that just people are freaking out about anything rusted. Do you know that is rusty? Someone, you go to their house and they're like oiling every bolt, and like they're constantly oiling all the metal in their house because they're so worried that any rust will cause rusting. So like, which is a thing that like people like it happens everywhere, right? Everything rusts, and so like you could have people that are just freaking out about rust, like a town that's completely like keeping everything clean, which could be really, and like and you could also do like creepy things as well, like like maybe like you find rust shavings like on things and stuff like that, like little busts of rust in places, and maybe it like you see it like twinkle in dust. It's like a little type of dust that you can notice. I don't know. And how it could creep into your buildings before it creeps onto people is always like a fun thing.
That's
like
always fun. Yeah.
Like you're camping out in you're on a little adventure. You're in the environment. You find a log cabin or some sort of cabin, and then suddenly you wake up in the night and all the bolts have rusted. Yeah. And you're like, open the door, and you're like, oh fuck! We're in a rust zone. Everything's crap.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it becomes like, almost like, how I'd imagine it actually, like, because I was talking before about like it being more of a slow corruption, but maybe it's slower for like organic alive matter, but when it's dead organic matter, so like I said, like a log cabin, it's it goes quickly, like a wildfire, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Or
had
maybe
would be
you
yeah.
have like you could just do a little like fetch quest, make it a fetch quest, and you've been given something that you don't really know what it is, but you've been like told just take this to this place, right? And suddenly you notice when you enter the wood that it's like something's happening in the distance.
Yeah.
And then slowly but surely you notice the rust is like coming towards you, and as you're running, it's just following you and then following the person carrying the thing, and you're like, chuck it away. Do I chuck it? Just chuck it away. Just
smart.
let go of it. You throw it, and then it all like coalesces on this thing, rusts the whole thing, and then you realize that was like a cure or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or something that it's like trying to go after.
Well, it's like when you have like mycelium or anything that's connected, like it's drawn to light or anything like that, and it just you always hear those horror stories about something like you accidentally turn on the light and it goes and it all goes towards the light, and so having almost like semi-sentient rusting sounds really fun. Like I'm thinking about, like, again, going back to the Dale lands, we had that idea of everything rotting and like decay and stuff like that, and then what again, the combining of two of those perhaps is that's again difficult to do, I know, but I'm just thinking, like, what if for some reason accidentally someone did bring back a version of the rusting to the mainland, right? It's currently
100%.
And then you go into these places and it develops and changes. And God, are we just talking about magical COVID? I think this is what's happening here. But,
I think, but that's the thing, and I think I've got a few ideas for this, but we could keep going on for ages. So like, we could.
Let's move on. Yes, away from rusting. Where else can we go in these isles?
So as we said, there's like there's 7 isles. I mean, we could talk. There's a little bit more that it talks about, like navigating them. There's some different things for all the different ships. We could sort of move on from that to the gazetteer, where we've got Alaron, the home to the largest folk population, and Caer Calid, which is where the Heist King Derrid Kendrick lives. You've got Gwyneth, which is the most magical of the Moonshae Isles, which is the Murloc Vale, which we already talked about, and the Fey Kingdom that was sunk into it. Moray is this monstrous werewolf place, which is a refuge.
I've just bought a house there, Hamilton. Don't you worry.
You can just buy. You've been there since it was birthed. You are the queen of the werewolves. So Norland is the home of the Norlanders. Surprise, surprise. Omen's Isle, which is the giants and evil Fae Isle, whatever that means. Snowdon, which was once rich in mineral resource, which was conquered by Am and is now the one suffering from the rusting greatly.
What it makes me think of, like, I guess, because now it's talking about, and then it goes out, and more than 100 smaller isles and stuff like that from these 7. And I know we've already talked about the idea of random tables. I don't know if you've ever read or know about the Magic Faraway tree at all. And
it's so weird. My daughter's been reading that recently to watch the movie.
I was going to say the movie's coming out, but that's the idea. I thought to myself, it's like maybe these islands, if you want that really fairy tale spin, you just take like the Island of Sweet Treats or the Island of Tempers, or that sort of thing. That's why. Sorry, this is just me adding on to that. But like, you have these 7 ones that are like, here are the major elements that connect to these themes overall. But equally, if you're like, oh, my players aren't interested in any of these, you're like, okay, well maybe you'll start on Alaron and then hiking Derrid Kendrick goes, oh, a new island has appeared. Oh, it's the island of birthdays
on your Fae iPhone. Exactly.
Absolutely.
I think that would be fun, and I think like the wind skiff thing makes me think of that very cartoony version of A Legend of Zelda, which is like Wind Waker.
Wind Waker, of course. Exactly. Absolutely.
And I think I feel like Alaron feels the most generic of them to a certain extent.
So generic, I think like it's trying to find things that are interesting, but maybe it's because we've come to this quite close to the end of our time traveling around, but also we've got the high road, we've got this idea of a forest, which admittedly the forest itself, this Durnell forest, like, it's got horrible things in it that prey on hamlets within. Again, I would have loved it if it was like more than just, it's goblins or hobgoblins. But it could be like, it's a hobgoblin, but it's got rusting on it, or it's the wargs and there's something else about it. Because I like this idea of the Swanmay River that provides shelter to the forest guardians known as Swanmays, fae that have the ability to change into swans. I was like, oh, that's really cool, and there's a nice picture for it as well. And it's that I feel like out of all the places we've been to so far, again, it's this idea of fairy tales and folk tales. This is where you do your fairy tale D&D, right? And so you come across an injured swan and you nurse it back to health, and it turns out it is a lady, and she has to be returned home because the forest is dying. She's not there, but you've taken care of her, and all that sort of thing. Those are the things I always think of, is like, what are the fairy tale tropes that you can put into? So I quite like the forest, I'll admit. And then we have this mountain range, which has these different dwarven clans, which again, they are sort of like, I think they're fighting. I'm not entirely sure. There's like ties to kings and this idea of loyalty. So it's not just dwarves. Sorry, it's the Proud Fury orcs as well. And then yes, this shadow dragon that you were sort of mentioning earlier. This mysterious shadow dragon. And I think again, it's interesting to have like, this is what's happening right now. This political like conflict. Would you go there and try and help out and be be High King Kendrick's like representatives, because he can't be there. I think that would be interesting to have like names for like the main representatives or leaders, and like, oh, there's going to be an attack soon or something. You know what I mean? And anything from you for Alaron, I guess?
I like the idea of a shadow dragon. I think they're cool, but I'm trying to go through it again, because like not a lot's coming back to me about this one.
Yeah,
so I'm like,
I know.
What was it?
Moonwells, that was it.
Moonwells are like everywhere. So I think it's like, it feels like the good beginning point of this fairy tale adventure. It's got a fairy tale castle. It's got fairy tale mountains with dwarves and dragons and all the good stuff you need, with a bit of fae and a bit of like the sort of elements of the Moonshae with the Moonwells. And like the King's Road, which has got bloodthirsty mercenaries and smugglers for hoodlums, and
Hoodlums.
that kind of thing. So like brigands. What did Tay say on our thing?
You
gotta Google bad guys.
You just said that they're brigands. But
yes. No, she said you got to Google bad guys before you go on your trip, sort of thing. So like that's what you.
Yes, absolutely.
I
guess I think this is something I said to you off recording, is that I feel like all these bits, they're like, oh, here's the castle, here's these things, but it's not like and here's the tavern that everyone knows. Like the Moonwells, they're not really named, and I would expect one of them or two of them to be named after a local like legend or a landmark or something. Like there's the one further north is near the cairn of Welsh Rich Hugh, which is the first king of the island. I was like, surely it's like, I don't know, Hugh's Moonwell or something, like, or like
Caladir. You mean Cair Caladir?
Cair Caladir, yes, absolutely. Maybe that's what you call it, Cair Caladir's Moonwell. Or, but that's what I mean. Is like, it's just like, it's another Moonwell. I think I don't know. I'd give something to it, like I don't know, the sparkling Moonwell, or the the lunar eclipse. I don't know.
Generally, all of this book, I am like, wow, dudes, this is light. This is so light. Like there is no art for any of these places. Like this is your moment to get a really good like city with a huge like towering like castle, cool island, seasides, and I'm just kind of like, wow, there's not a lot of this, and you're giving me paragraphs on this like forest which has got hobgoblins and goblins and bugbears in it, which is fine, but you're like,
oh my,
like, ooh, wow, like I would so prefer a little bit of like, and it's the same with Gwyneth. Like we can go on to Gwyneth, which is the Fey one, only to just say that this one's like, oh, this has got fierce storms, it's got Eladrin, it's got this ancestral home, it's got Chrysalis, which is hidden in the mountains of Morlock Vale. This like really cool idea, a Chrysalis. What could this be? A crystal palacey thing hidden in the mountains. Where's that piece of art? Where's like all the really cool stuff I'm going to find there? I just think coming off the back of, we talk about it all the time, the Planescape, and like you got all these different like areas and towns that we went to in all these different planes, and there's stuff in them, and there's people in them, and there's life, and there's like quality, and like the serene matriarch Ate Ona is a young elf of mere 2 centuries, rules Chrysalis. After rescuing a harper near death in the mountains, she agreed to open the city to visitors. Since then, a small community of gnomes has settled here, building 2-story cottages amongst elven towers of glass, silver, and crystal. Harper used the city as a base of the Moonshaes. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, this is your really cool crystal glass city, and all I know is that the leader saved a harper, and now gnomes have moved in. Like, that's not good enough, people. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, I'm no wonder the indie community is thriving.
It's thriving so much, yeah.
Because like I could do a whole book about Chrysalis. Like, why? And people should, and I think people would prefer. Maybe I'm wrong, but personally, I would feel that I'd rather have a whole book about Gwyneth and a whole book about Chrysalis than I would having a chapter just on a very lightweight chapter on 7 of these isles.
Agreed. I think there's nothing exciting. Like the most exciting thing I wrote down was in so I'm going to say all these names wrong as usual. Sarifal, which again decided when it sank below the lays, High Lady went back into the Winter Glen and drove out an arch hag called Upfania. I'm like, as an arch hag? What's an arch hag? Like we've got archfey, you got archlich. I've never heard of an arch hag before. I'm like, how did she drive her out? Because she's these powerful, and again that idea of like powerful women or femme presenting people fighting against each other. That's cool. Can she come back?
Cool. Can we have that as a story? Like, that's the new I'm sorry. That could rival what's his face? Strahd, right? Like imagine the front cover. You've got an archfey fighting an archhag, right? There's something that's happening with the Shadowfell. I'd have the Shadow, like Castle Umbra, which means Castle Shadow, basically, Umbral Shadow. So, like, having this really cool castle, which is inhabited by a hag that's got this, like, and she's ruling over the land. She's got this, built in the forest. It's like a weird, creepy Baba Yaga style castle thing with like legs coming out of it and creepy like stuff. Make it weird, and then you've got like that's kind of like maybe that like grows out of the forest and it's slowly been like corrupting the land, and they've got all these displaced beings, wargs and sturges that are growing, and it's all shadowy. And then you've got the Fae, Archfey, who's like, this is my land, this is my beautiful city of Sarafal, and in the forest of what was once Winter Glen. And you're like, this is the fight, and you're just a part of it. And you help push back the hag and send them back to the Shadowfell, like, and restore. That's a good way of like another sort of like allegory for this whole eco fantasy they're going for, which is instead it's just represented by this sort of like malevolence, for want of a better term. But you could portal into the Feywild, you could portal into the Shadowfell. People love that.
I feel like anytime that an island disappears under the water, it appears in the Shadowfell. Or when we talked about Netheril ages ago, that idea of that Netheril falls, it actually turns up, it is now a floating island. I just feel like there's so many contrasts, right? Like when one disappears from one universe, it appears in another universe.
You have to like travel into the Shadowfell to we're talking about the paths, what they call the trods.
Fairy trods, yes.
The fairy trods. There are like Shadowfell versions of the fairy trods where you can travel much quicker through the Shadowfell. Maybe that's a way you put that into the mechanics of the game. More like, and you do a little bit of the like Frodo when you're in there. You're more likely to get attracted to like the bad stuff, but maybe it's like a good way to travel across and to find these hidden isles and maybe restore them, or I don't know. There's something there.
There's something there, absolutely. And I think like even like going on to Moray quickly, just like looking again, not much else. It's seen the most violence out of all the Moonshae Isles, and this idea of like the hundreds of werewolves, which is terrifying. This idea of the cult of the beast, which again we have a little bit on it earlier, how they're going to try and bring back this horrific devil god or something. And it's again, I would have liked a bit more like they're looking for something. Are they corrupting all the Moonwells? Yeah, that's what it is. They're corrupting all the Moonwells, and hopefully they'll bring them back. I liked how, again, just at the bottom of the Orc Skull Mountains, this idea of like there's a high peak, and all these orcs avoid it because there's a banshee up there who's a mother whose 4 sons died in battle, and her wails can be heard for miles, and she supposedly dwells in a glass castle but has never been found. It's like, that feels like to me that's not that doesn't exist perhaps, and it's like some sort of dissonance, like as an island or a network thing like breaks or falls, it comes through this gap. There's some sort of tear in the weave, and that's where we hear it. You know, or we get up to the top of it, and there's like lots of like randomly like treasure chests that are broken up, and there's like treasure up here, but where's it from? And it's because some house has been like crushed under the waves, and it's just been poured out here. I don't know.
I'd
like
love that if it was. Isn't there a really cool castle in one of the elemental realms that was like between two elemental realms on the border, and it was like it was like bordering them.
Yeah.
But that's a really cool idea, that it could be like, it's really like one orc had gone up, entered accidentally into the castle, which is just like a doorway in a tree, or like a portal in the void, you know, and you just pass into a tear, and then you're in this crystal castle in the negative elemental plane or something like that. So that's just, and then you're like, and it somehow made its way back and tells the story of the Crystal Castle, but you're never gonna, it doesn't really exist in this physicality, but it's there. I think that's cool. And I think I think it's interesting to have more like monstrous places. I think that I feel like it's a bit staid to be like, they're evil, like Anthrox.
100%.
Because I'm actually like, I think there's more scope in D&D, like, because we get that in Planescape a lot of like, because Planescape is like wondrous magical creatures of all existences live in all these realms. So there's Beastlands, which is filled with, you know,
animals of all sorts,
animals that are like intelligent, that, you know, and that are like humanoid animals as well. Like, and you've got I always go to the Arcanoloths as well, which look like foxes, for example, like fox. And so there's this kind of, I think that it would be interesting and slightly more interesting to have it as just a like a sanctuary for lycanthropy rather than evil lycanthropy, like because they can still follow the cult of the beast, because they like believe in, like, you know, this sort of thing, but not making them evil maybe necessarily, or just being like using one of the gods. I don't know what the gods from the Beastlands are off the top of my head. There's the panther one that's really cool, and that everyone dreams, and the cat dreams, and they dream of being hunters. But you could do something along those lines and make that more interesting.
I do like the idea, of like even like the Rusted, like we talked about it before, about like how Queen Forfallen is like a pirate or whatever, but maybe she's just fighting for independence. It comes back to, we were talking about it last time, I think, the idea of you know, X-Men and Magneto, right? And how he's fighting for their rights, even though he's doing it by bad means. Same thing here, right? We could be like, we're just fighting to survive because, you know, it's not our fault we were afflicted this way. Maybe we had no choice, all that sort of thing. And I think just makes it a little bit more like, rather than that two-dimensional, like, bad guys must kill bad guys in order to, because we're the good guys. It's like, I don't think it's as straightforward as that. So
well, the thing, not to again bring up what I did, but I think it's a useful, I just got a good example because you brought it up, is that like in my book, the idea that this whole like corruption started was because they opened a portal what they thought was heaven. So when they open the portal and all this mechanical corruption comes through, and these angelic beasts of mechanical nature, they think some people believe this is the angels. They believe that because they were like, the mages were all like into numerical mathematics, and felt they understood like the code of the pattern, if you know what I mean. So when they unrip the pattern, they didn't go to heaven, or maybe they have. And to them, they're like, well, this is our God. Like, even though it's killing us and it's turning everything, like, if they made it,
this is what we meant to
do. Their belief and their faith in this, like, this horrific thing that is afflicting their land is that, well, no, this is, I believe this. Even though you are being hurt by this, you are meant to be hurt by this. We are being punished. You know, we need to become rusted, but corrupted, because that is our true nature of our God to them, and that makes their purpose more believable. But personally, I feel, because it gives them a belief structure and a faith structure to do such evil things, which is to perpetuate this. Whilst in this, the rusting is being perpetuated because they want the power purely. And therefore, to do that, they must hurt nature, which I don't think gives enough of a reason. Because, I mean, yes, that's very much like capitalism. People destroy nature for money. But it would be, I think there's something more potent in faith to be placed
I
on
agree.
it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Going on to Norland very quickly, there's this idea that I thought was interesting. Again, it talks about, again, the rusting, new challenges, all that sort of thing. We've got the Jarl here, like we've sort of talked about, the Offsven, who is, famous for his hospitality, generous gifts, brought him many loyal followers. But when the gold runs out, he might find himself alone. How interesting, right? That idea you can't buy, or you can buy stuff, but as soon as the money runs out, that's kind of it. So I thought that was an interesting, again, would be cool to see him a bit more. This comparison of him and his sister. Maybe he relies on his sister way too much, this Queen for Fallen, to see how far we get through that. I just thought it was just really that political sort of like relationship. Like maybe he relies on her a lot to send him sort of tips, and he goes, oh well, I'll get for example, later on we talked about this ring that he asks the players to get from a ship. He's like, cool, I'm going to keep that to myself and use it as a bargaining chip for next time I'm in trouble, to pay off people, right? Maybe this guy's got a lot of debts, and maybe he's just trying to be like, I'm everyone's guy here, I'll pay for you. But then I thought that's always an interesting thing for a leader to be like, what happens when the power's gone? Like, will people stand? Is he doing good, right? Or is he just wasting all this money away because he thinks that's what people want? And I just thought that was a really interesting
no, it is a good
angle,
nice little, and it's like a fun little secret to uncover and stuff like that.
The only one really that caught my eye, which I know is going to sound really wild after talking all about the rusting and then werewolves and all this sort of thing, on Norland, is the Norhelm Isles. All these little islands nearby. They can barely sustain themselves through fishing and hunting, but often turn to raiding or piracy. And it talks about like elaborate laws for dividing whale meat fairly and all that sort of thing. But suddenly I was like, oh yeah, what if again, it's just made me think of like, what if there's a crime committed on the ocean? Like, how do we do jurisdiction and stuff like that? Because again, I mean, I know there's other places that have this idea, like obviously your favorite elf, whose name I was completely gone out of my head. There you go, Jarlaxle has his boat, and then there's a whole fleet of pirates in the sea, the princes of the seas, that have their own like laws and justices. And I just thought that makes, I think again, would be nice to have that, like if there was not just that one rusted ship that has Queen for Fallen on it, but like a couple of other pirate factions around, and like how they deal with stuff. Like are they like how firefighting services used to be in the UK, is that they'd come along and they expect to be paid before they put out the fire.
Unless you've got and you have to have insurance. I've got the building next door has got Sunfire insurance on it, and a couple of next one too. So it was like the old-fashioned, like you had to have your insurance with one, and if they turned up from the other company, then you would have to like pay them back or get your insurance company to pay them for like the fire company.
Wild. Yeah, so that weird, I do, you're drowning, and they're like, yeah, so what cards have you got? What have you got? Yeah, I just like that idea of like your own ship has been sunk or like you're falling, and they're like, well, we'll help you, but it's gonna cost you, and we want to get it all signed so we're not any like.
I'm now just thinking of Stan, the dealer from Monkey Island, if anyone remembers the boat dealer.
Exactly that. Yeah. Is there any other bits on the other islands? I know we talked a bit about Snowdown. There's Omen's Isle.
Omen Isle is interesting for all of the sort of like giant. There's a kind of a bit of more of a story about it. There's a little bit of, if you've read Bigby's Guide to the Giants, you will be aware of all of the different like tiers and sort of castes there are of the system. There is in the sort of like hill giant to frost giant to fire giant hierarchy.
Yes.
And and it sounds like the fire giant has made a deal with Queen for Fallen, and Axenwright was the name I was trying to think of, which is this other rusted lieutenant of Queen for Fallen, is also a pirate captain, and they seem to have like some sort of like, so there's a little bit of like additional complexity to this politics that's going on, as to the different factions, and kind of brings the Iron Giants. Sorry, that's the movie. But my gosh, why have they not done that?
Well, Drew was about to say,
where's the Iron Giant? Where's this rusted Iron Giant? people. Come on.
100%. That's exactly what I was going to say. I was like, surely this is a time when something happens to Queen Fallen, like she gets captured, or I don't know, something happens, it all breaks out, and then King Kendrick is suddenly beset by this huge giant, whoever it is, who's completely rusted, and starts bringing it to the different islands.
You know what it is? It's like the scene, like the pre-credit scene, the opening scene is like the giants all banding together, going, "We must get rid of the rusted. We must fight them." Okay, and then it's like they all argue, and they go, "Fine, we'll get rid of them. Summon for Fallen to me." And the giant kind of goes like, the king of the giants kind of like tells her like, "We have none of your business anymore. Want you out of our ports. We don't want any of your rusting. You're destroying our land." And she like does the clamp on his arm or something like that, and he's like. It's like, "What are you doing? Let go of me!" You know, like, and it's like, and then like you notice like creeping in from all of the shadows is all of this rusted, like going all over all the giants, and all of like the main 8 giants of the conclave of the giant like lords or whatever. They're all turned to rust giants, and it's like now they fight on her behalf, and it's like she now has an army of 8. Like huge giants that are all rusted beasts. Boom, boom. There you go.
Scary. Yes, no, absolutely. We want those rusted giants. We want them. Yeah.
And what would be so cool is the visual, right? Is she goes, "Go forth," and they just walk into the water, and they go under the water, and as the water rises up, they're just walking like proper like Pacific Rim shit, you know. And it just walks in a straight line, and it's
100%.
like. And you can maybe see the head of it like popping above the sea occasionally.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my god, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, or alternatively, they could. I do like this idea of now rusted, say like a hill giants or frost giants, or even fire giants trying to get onto the fairy trods, and they're having to like, 3 times widow shins. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think
I like the idea of an inverse 3 kobolds in a trench coat, which is a rusted giant pretending to be a kobold. Do you know what I mean? Like 1 kobold. So they're like on their knees with their shoes on their knees, and they're like just like, "I'm just a normal human," sort of thing. Yeah.
They've put like their hands got a little bit of makeup
on. No, it's got a twig coming out of the hands, so like they've put the hands up their sleeves, and it's like really big shoulders with this little hand coming out, shaking out.
Oh, amazing. The only thing I was going to mention again is some other places like Maelstrom and Whale Bones, all those places, like interesting places to go to. There was just a mention somewhere, now obviously I can't find it for love nor money. In Frostfen, there's this idea of a weir wyvern. A werewolf. I'd never heard of that before. That sounds certainly right up your street, is what I was thinking.
Yeah. So on board. Yeah, no, I'm also not a fan that they're like, "We're now going to go find and kill it." Like, okay, it's just nice. This person just wants to chill, all right?
Because they were doing something of like they were teaching the other wyverns to do something, or was that a different one? I can't remember. But
I didn't see that. I just saw that it just says that the purple dragon knights are off to kill it, and you're like,
that was it. Yes,
chill, guys. Whalebones is interesting. They sort of like it gave me. I don't know if you've ever seen not. Blackfish. That's the one where
that's the documentary, isn't it?
That's the documentary. There's another documentary which is all about the bay where they kill the whales in Japan.
Oh no, I've not seen that one.
Awful. I think it's not. It's very sad, and they sort of like lure them into a bay and then just and it just gave me that vibe of like this kind of sacred land. It was like and it was all. It was a documentary about it about the same time as Blackfish came out, because Blackfish is the one where the orc eats her, right?
Yes, a really horrible thing at SeaWorld, and it's like where all this could have been not avoided, but you know, it's all these factors that are like, it was gonna be end badly. Yeah, it's a cracking documentary. I'd recommend it. But it is your mileage may vary.
100%, and the same on this one. I think it was a BBC one on this this bay. I think it was called like Dolphin Bay or Whale Bay or something like that. But it's but I can't remember that, and it's very sad because the idea here is that Whalebones is like a sacred site where rocks perched on the island's tallest peaks. The island's fierce locals eagerly take food and supplies by force to anyone foolish enough to draw near, because but it was believed that the whales come here to honor and commune with their dead ancestors, and have banned whale hunting near the islands has been banned by the druids. But because of this overfishing, people have come here to whaling ships have come to get the whales
Right.
when they're like actually in like what seems to be like a breeding location. So it's kind of
Right.
like really dark, proper, again on this eco fantasy thing of like, yeah.
Well, it's another thing. Again, I'm just thinking this is another, like, maybe the third time we've come across something that's about the dead. Because before we had in the Dale Lands, we had this idea of the lake. Then we had the new island in Calamsham, the cemetery, and now we have here, but for Wales. And I think it is just really interesting that we, again, I don't think it's like an obvious theme or like they've done this deliberately, but I do think it's, I guess, for this, the whole, and this goes back to what I've been thinking about this whole time, is that Moonshae Isles is perfect if you want to do oops all druids who are protecting the moon wells, right?
Yeah.
But also I do like the idea that you are sent on secondment to like whale bones, and you get to see all this eco fantasy stuff firsthand and all that sort of thing. But I just think there's a lot to it that you gain out of it. But then equally, the flip side could be that you are all playing oops all bad guys, oops all rogues or warlocks, whatever, and you're going and you're maybe acting on orders from a patron or from some deity to encourage the rustering or encourage all this stuff, and actually you'd be like, I don't know if I want to be this. I don't want to be a scoundrel. I want to be someone with a heart of gold that helps people. So I think you could be the hero of the story, or you could be the bad guy of the story. And I think it's interesting. And I felt Whalebones was just an interesting one because again, is that something where I hadn't really considered fantasy whales, perhaps,
The other one, the other sort of group or cult that you could join in addition to the druids is the Knights of the Blue Moon.
Mm-hmm.
So they are like they're like a kind of very deep cut thing in the lore, but they are based Knights of the, I can't remember because I made a character that was a Knight of the Blue Moon once,
okay,
which is a 3.5 E. Here we are. It's a class that was actually in 3.5 E, which is Saloon. Saloon is their battle. They are elite shoulders and end of battle against the Mistress of the Night, which is I forget what their name is off the top of my head. But there's it's Saloon had a battle with Saloon being the goddess of the moon. Nyx, I think, is the goddess of the night, I believe, and they had a falling out and created it's like a very like old ancient prophecy sort of idea, and they're very like high magic paladin sort of classes that used to be there, and it was like a particularly city. It was actually in the City of Splendor's Waterdeep. You can find this in 3.5e as an additional class, and I think it's kind of like, but it was an interesting sort of thing that you could take on if you wanted to go down the route of like being a knightly figure instead of a druid figure that's a protector of the moon and the moon wells, and you could go down that route instead. Is the other thing I thought of.
Absolutely. I think there's like so much that is here, but as you said, I think my biggest criticism through the whole of this chapter, like a lot of this book, is it feels like it's left for you, the GM, to do it, and it feels like you find more information probably about these things in other places, like we did with Icewind Dale, probably when we'd go to Baldur's Gate, the same thing. And I feel like, I don't know, I'd like to play something here. I think, like I said, I find the idea of islands and getting through it, but I need more stuff to make me excited to do it. Because otherwise, the two stories are like helping King Kendrick out or stopping the rusting. And I'm like, I'm sure there's something else here, maybe like the Feywild, the Despairing Islands. Like, I feel like there's more here, or like, one of your party has turned into a werewolf. We got to go find them and make sure they're okay, and like we can maybe help them, or they've got the rusting has happened whilst they've been traveling, and we're gonna, because I think there's stuff here that I'm like, but I want more, but I don't know if it's strong enough on its own currently. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I think everything feels like we said. I feel like they could do with giving a little bit more.
Needs more Feywild, needs more underwater.
Yeah, I think it needs. Yeah, I know, but also just all the factions we've talked about could do with a bit more oomph behind them, a little bit more like of a protagonist and antagonist, and reasons d'etre for all of these things. What are their goals? Just a few of these sort of like the classic, like creating a character thing, but for these factions of like, this is the faction, this is their goal, these are the key players, this is what they're doing to achieve it. This is what they're trying to stop. You know, and that could be much. I think it's there, but it's not. There's not enough to it, because I think like the rusted, it's kind of like they want to be more powerfully rusted creatures. But that doesn't seem like a great thing after a while. And a few of them might be like, well, okay, I'm more armored up, but I'm also like a rusted construct now. Is this really what I wanted for myself? Like, I don't know.
I think this is the thing as well, because obviously if it got invaded by early on, presumably for political standing or expansion or anything like that, sure. But like, I feel like if there's more contention over control, what else is there here that's not the moon wells? Because right now they're poisoning moon wells because of the rusting, right? But I'm like, maybe there's something else here as a unique resource. You know how, like, for example, right now in the world is like, oh, oil. Where can we get oil? I know. Or, oh, I want this kind of resource or this sort of mineral. And I think, like I said earlier, maybe it's rich in minerals somewhere. But I feel like
snow down.
But then that's not very nice just now. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel like the place. I just wish there was obvious what is the draw for people to take or try to fight to take this place, right?
I think that's the thing, and they've kind of probably spread themselves thin with all these different ideas. If they took them and run with it, like that would be the best. Which I felt like Icewind Dale went hard on that. Like every single place had like a different like thing to deal with. Whilst you were just like, if you just took the Crescenabond weird 7 Lich as a one huge weird creepy Dark Souls monster, and just did that everywhere, it would be fine. We wouldn't be bored. We'd be much better if you put the same amount of time in, because it feels very much like we're ideas men. Do you know what I mean? And
yes.
You know what I mean? And there's been like no follow through. You know, there's there's a lot of ideas.
We've got, what about this? And you go, oh, how about 3 more of these things? You're like, stop.
Exactly.
What about?
But where's the actual meat on these bones? Because at the moment we've got a load of bones, and they're in a pile, and they're all about to animate, and there's not a lot. They're all just going to collapse very quickly without everyone else having to do a lot of work, I think, which is the problem that I feel like the whole way through this is like, as a GM, there's a load of little threads for you to pull, but you've got to knit the whole jumper. You know, like there's not a lot. There's not much there.
Like, if anything, like I always go to the renowned.
For all those analogies.
No, I love it. It's like in the renowned section. I always find that's the easiest way to be like, what is your actions, right? And you've got the Kendrick family, then you got the sort of Feywild High Lady Ordaf, and then you got Jarl of Seven, and then you got the Moonshae druids. And I'm like, cool. What about the rusted? I feel like it's like, okay, but none of them are strong enough by themselves. I feel like the druids, I was like, oh, the druids are here, I guess so. Like, there's not been any mention of the Emerald Enclave.
They've even mentioned them very briefly, where it's it does say like, they come here to visit. That was it, to look at a moonwell. It was one of the moonwells. They go, the Emerald Enclave, come here.
Wait, hang on, surely that's really important. Like, anyway, okay. Well, to be fair, we haven't looked much into the factions ourselves, so maybe that's
still. They clearly have done a whole piece about the factions. Why, you know, they mentioned the Harpers. One of the Harpers got killed somewhere, didn't they? And that was it. But it's like, oh shit, we forgot Emerald Enclave. You know, that's kind of what it was.
And sign off, because it feels like that's like one of the most important natural, like, focused factions. So. Yeah, I think, and we've mentioned a little bit about it, but the 4 different adventures, they're fine. They're just, again, they're not as inspiring. The message in the bottle is interesting because you get this location afterwards as a bastion, this island, which I'm like, okay, I guess that's interesting. And then you get a shipwreck, and then there's one about like trying to do a piece with some of the giants, which again I'm always like, oh, that's interesting. It's like basically it's doing a Riders of Rohan. Like, because there's a little worm tongue kind of character called Ulrich Fell Whisperer, which is a Formian that's trying to sabotage the event, which I thought was quite interesting. But I think I was really excited, and I think I'm like there going like, oh, almost just needs a little bit of fine tuning. I think just from my point of view. But like again, I still don't think it's the one I've been most disappointed by, if you see what I mean. I think that's forever going to be the Dalelands. I'm sorry, Dalelands. I will, maybe one day it'll change, but not for now. But there you go. That's our. Oh, my final note. Right, I just have it at the bottom here. It goes, needs more dinosaurs. Because there's a dinosaur picture somewhere, and I'm like, oh, are there dinosaurs here? And there's like there's a couple of mentions of them somewhere. And I'm like,
okay.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's have dinosaurs.
Yeah, sure. Like, okay.
Because
Like,
the beast that they're trying to get back comes in the form of a T-Rex, and I was like, okay, well, let's get people. Let's do like the Na'vi in Avatar. Let's get pterodactyls. Let's do
where's
all
that island? We could have one island which is called Isla Nubella. it's very similar.
Yes.
Some
Absolutely.
crazy druid has started getting the amber nectar from it and putting it into frogs. Into Slardy. There you go.
Oh my god, there you go. See, we're not ideas people, Hamilton. We're doers.
We're doers. This is the thing. I want to show you something. Now you've mentioned this. Yeah. I found this guy at Salute. He makes tanks with
dinos on them. Tankosaurs. Oh my goodness, that is an incredible picture.
I put up there's a QR code if you want to go see what they did. Yes. They're on YouTube, but it just reminded me of like, I just saw this and I walked past and I was like, there's one which is just like a zebra-colored Stegosaurus tank, and it is like one of the stupidest, coolest things I've ever seen when I was there. And it was like, this guy's just made just loads of tanks with like dinosaur toys, and it's like amazing.
I like the idea. It's not if I shouldn't do this, it's if I could. You know?
Yes. It's more like I must. I think
must.
That's the word I got. Yeah.
That's great. I love that. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much, Hamilton, for taking us to Moonshae Isles. I think I've got my, you know what? We've got our tans. We've been boarded by pirates. We've complained about the cuisine and
or lack of
lack of. Yes. I guess where are we off on our final stop for this travel book club? Yeah.
Sorry, our final stop on this is we're heading back to the mainland, and this time I feel like we've been cosmopolitan, but not in the sort of modern cosmopolitan way.
Right.
Like if there was like a travel guidebook, you'd be like, go see the ancient windswept depths of Kalimshan. Go find the empty, beautiful waters of Moonshae. Go explore the wondrous, icy beauty of Icewind Dale, and then hop for a city break in Baldur's Gate. You know, like that's what this one would be. So we're hopping for our. We've got the other one was like find your country retreat in the Dale lands, right?
That's very good, very good. Yeah.
So this one is now our city break, our weekend, weekend away, a weekender in Baldur's Gate. So get ready for that. And look, I'll tell you what, it's got bloody Karlach on the front cover. So
wow, I wonder if she'll be there. Yes. Yes. Baldur's Gate, a bustling. Okay, let's say it. Bustling metropolis. Oh my gosh, I'll start all that again. Yes, Baldur's Gate, a bustling metropolis. No, how do you say it? Metropolis. What the fuck's wrong with me? Baldur's Gate, a bustling metropolis where money comes first and life is cheap. Like, yes, you and I have both played Baldur's Gate, various degrees of it. It's not a nice place. Very different to the other places we might have been on other like DM's book club and travel book clubs, like, you know, Waterdeep or Neverwinter. It is a bit of a what I imagine people think London is, right? Yeah. Crime capital of the UK, you know.
Yeah, which is like, I mean, like it's got the three gods of death. We've got Bale, Bane, and
Merkel.
Baal, yeah. You've got Baalspawn, you've got vampires, you've got all the stuff.
It's all decay and what's it?
Yeah. Lost glory and sort of and ancient like myths and legends of the city, and the actual Boulder being this famous character, and the huge big bridge which has got the little island in the middle, and it's very much like this is big, bad, brash, bawdy, and dark city of the coast. You know?
It's not apologetic for what it is.
No, 100% not.
What a way to end our travel book club, though. It's like we've gone to all these beautiful places, and now let's go to Lanzarote. Essentially, let's.
it's not. I doing a disservice to Lanzarote.
I think it is. Yeah, absolutely.
I think. Let's go Magaluf, right? So
I feel like this is the way where the lads and the girls, like parties go to. We'll go to Baldur's Gate. You know, you can all be.
Yeah, what's in Boulder? It's Las Vegas. It's Las Vegas.
Yes,
it's the Las Vegas. Yeah, Luskan is Reno.
Yes.
This is Las Vegas. Waterdeep is New York. You know,
absolutely. Yes.
yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much. Yes, so come back next time for our final stop on this travel book club tour. But in the meantime, go check out our sibling podcast, the DM's normal book club, not the travel book club, the actual book club. And also check out in the show notes for us as well. We've got our various links and stuff. You can go check out Hamilton's Theatre Macabre stuff. You can check out whatever I'm doing on the internet, which is probably way too many things.
Lots of things.
Lots of things.
You know what? You could never find where she is.
There, oh, look at that! You're so on it these days. I really appreciate it. More so than I am on these things. But until then, friends, now we'll see you on the
in Baldur's Gate.
We'll see you on Baldur's Gate. Was it not flip side of the page? Do we not do that anymore? Or is that
the GM's book club?
Oh, it is the GM's book club.
That's the flip side of the page. And then this one is, we'll just see you in Baldur's Gate.
We'll just see you in Baldur's Gate. All right.
We think of a good one, and then we ended up like...
We just ended up just going to the next place. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, friends, we will now see you
in Baldur's Gate.
Woo! Bye!